everybody waiting while we were in executive session. Moving on to President's comments. Good evening, Washington Township. I wanted to take this opportunity to expand on my President's comments from last month's reorg meeting, where I spoke about the functionality of our board, how the board is always going to have its differences, and that debate is healthy. And at the end of the day, I know we can all come together and make decisions for the betterment of our children, staff, and community. Last month's meeting was the first board meeting of our new superintendent, Mrs. Lynn. The amount of work and time that went into hiring a consultant, our interim superintendent, Mary Beth Kopax, and choosing Mrs. Lynn was a very heavy lift. We spent countless hours together conducting our due diligence and deliberating, and we got it done right and selected a tremendous candidate who is working tirelessly for this district. Every single month, members of this Board of Education go to committee meetings, meet in person with the superintendent, work on different initiatives, respond to emails, and take time to make a positive impact for this community. For those that don't know, most of the work of the Board of Education does is outside these public meetings. We attend monthly committee meetings in addition to sitting down with the superintendent multiple times a month. And for those that don't know, our board has 4 committees: Finance and Facilities, Personnel, Education, and Communications and Governance. It is the board president's responsibility to assign board members to these committees and appoint someone to chair each respective committee. Again, for those who may be unaware, currently Rob Waskus chairs Finance and Facilities, Isabel Vieira chairs Personnel, Lindsay Succi chairs Education, and Jen Ryan chairs Communications and Governance. Last year's board was very busy with the initiatives the Education Committee has undertaken in supporting our district's implementation of the new math curriculum. Finance and Facilities has done an incredible amount of work with the budget, referendum projects, and negotiating an additional Class 3 officer. Governance has been quarreling with the School Boards Association over the policy manual switch from Strauss-Esme and various other policy work. These are just a couple examples of big undertakings that come to mind where our board may disagree, but still work towards the betterment of our district and gets the job done. And I don't foresee any reason why this board can't continue with the great work it has started. After last week's board retreat, there was a reflection point in my mind that there is a lot of great things going on in our district, but many may just be unaware of all the work that goes into it. I believe we can cover some of these in more detail tonight and future board meetings as we work through the agenda and continue to show the community that at the end of the day, we all share the same common goal. And that concludes my comments, but I also wanted to congratulate Mrs. Lagos on her Eagles winning the Super Bowl. And she's successfully turned all 3 of my kids into Eagles fans, so, against their will. And I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. In accordance with the New Jersey's Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act, the results of the HIB-related investigations as conducted by designated school personnel will be reported to the Board of Education no later than the date of a regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting following the completion of an investigation. Our district totals for this reporting period are 11 unfounded and 3 founded. Per building, Benedict A. Cuccinella School had 3 reports of alleged HIB. Blocktown Cosman School had 6. Old Farmers Road School had 0. Long Valley Middle School had 5. Per building, Benedict A. Cuccinella School received the 3 reports. 3 were unfounded and 0 were founded. Blocktown Cosman School had 6 reports. 4 were unfounded and 2 were founded. Old Farmers Road School had 0 reports, 0 unfounded, and then 0 founded. Long Valley Middle School had 5 reports, 4 unfounded, 1 founded. And that concludes my HIB report. I also want to take the time now to congratulate and thank Ms. Carolee Gately and Ms. Jessica Tume, the kindergarten teacher at Old Farmers Road School, and Carolee is our district technology coordinator. They presented down in Atlantic City for Texpo, and they presented Playful Pathways to Data Literacy, and that was on January 29th. Their presentation was interactive, resourceful, visionary, and absolutely commendable. And embraced data literacy through playful exploration of technology. They highlighted cross-curricular lessons. They highlighted their weather units, which everyone that attended the session was absolutely floored by. And the presentation itself really had an interactive piece of which whoever attended was able to take away resources from all of what we are doing here. And again, I really can't express how proud I was to be there and to see them present as the superintendent for Washington Township, and the compliments that were received. Again, just a tremendous job. And so with that being said, I wanted them to present this evening a little bit of what they presented down in Atlantic City as well. Mr. Dave Jones also is our district STEM instructional coach, and he was also in attendance and supported them as well. So I really I want to highlight these three educators and administrator as well, just for exceptional. And I couldn't be more proud. So at this point, if you'd like, just a small or however you want to present, but I insist that you present, okay?
All right, thank you all. I'm Carolee Gately, so thank you all for having us. And I did want to thank Antonella Lind and Dave Jones for coming down and supporting us in Texpo. We were really proud to represent our district with our presentation, Playful Pathways to Data Literacy. And we are also very excited that we're going to be presenting this again at the NJAC Educational Technology Conference in March at Montclair State University. So we're excited for that coming up. So basically, our presentation talked about, like Antonella said, playful ways that our kindergartners explore data using technology. How they create, how they organize, how they analyze data in playful ways, and learn to make connections to build this data literacy. So, what is data literacy? So data literacy is the ability to read, interpret, and work with data. So when we make data transparent in the classroom, and we learn, we teach our students how to, what data means and how we use it and what it looks like. We really can help them build a solid foundation to understand the language of data, right? And what it can do for us and what connections it can make. And when we build this foundation, it leads us to data fluency, which they can build as they go through the years, which are those advanced abilities to understand data, communicate, apply, and act on the data. So data fluent students learn how to identify patterns, they ask the right questions, they challenge assumptions, and they take what they learn from the data and apply it in real-world context. And that is something they can take with them all the way through the grade. So data doesn't become overwhelming or intimidating, it becomes fun and exploratory and the ability to make connections. So now I'm going to pass it over to Jess, who's going to show you, because what does this look like in kindergarten?
Am I good without the microphone? Okay. All right. So we have a nice small group with us tonight, except for all the people who get to enjoy us at home. As many of you know, anyone who's known me as a kindergarten teacher knows this is my heart and soul. This is what I breathe and what I love. So to be able to come to the community and share with you what happens from a kindergarten perspective is such a special thing. Because I think anytime you take a look at what's happening in education, we can talk about big, fancy things. Oh, sure. Well, I just have to stay a little close to you. We can talk about big, fancy things like the words data literacy. But what does that look like for real kids? The cool thing about kindergarten, thank you. Here, we'll do this. All right. The cool thing about kindergarten is really it's meant to be a microcosm of what's happening in the real world. So anything we do in kindergarten is meant to mirror what's happening. So when we talk about data literacy, what does that look like for kindergartners? It actually looks like what we're doing anyway. It means we're collecting information, we're asking questions, we're organizing it, and then we're figuring out how to solve problems and look for solutions based on that. So Carolee, if you could click to the next one. So in kindergarten, and I've spoken about this before at board meetings, but I haven't given you this perspective. So I think when Dave and I presented a couple of years ago and we were talking about STEM, we talked about our approach to the weather and how in kindergarten we actually create weather videos and then we record our data in graphs based on that. A piece that I did not get to share is our connection to our buddy class in California. For the last 8 years, our class has had a buddy class in Southern California, and each day we create our video weather reports and we share them with our friends in California and they share their weather back. Right now, we're using Seesaw, and instead of having students in each class, we actually have a state as each class. And the way it works is the children are able to collect authentic sets of data. And think about what this says for kids. This little thing, even this little piece right here, and we're going to go deeper into it, gives them the vision of the world, not just from what they see, but what it looks like in comparison to other people's experiences. So just that idea of knowing, wait a minute, it's snowing here, but it's sunny there, that means things look different and feel different from different perspectives. So let's take a closer look at what this looks like. This is like the latest and greatest of what's happening in data in kindergarten, and this is actually different than the graph that I had shared a couple of years ago. Because what we've done is we have two sides. We have the September weather in New Jersey as the example here, September weather in California. And the chart up at the top is where the children chart the data. But then down at the bottom where you see the numbers on the side, that graph auto-populates when they input the numbers there. So we're charting the data so they can look for patterns. Then we're moving it to the graph where it's auto-populated. So now look at what we're doing with data. We're taking a look at what's happening in New Jersey, and now we can compare that information to what's happening in another location. And not only do we do it from the daily perspective, we also look at it from a seasonal perspective. So here you can see the weather chart at the top is where we type in the number of days within a certain temperature range. So you can see this winter, I actually took this screenshot from a recent one. You can see that in New Jersey, the 20s and the 30s have been really popular for us this winter. But then look at California. California, they're in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So again, the kids learn to analyze our weather and they compare it to the weather in another location. So one of the cool things that has happened with this is that it's become such a personal and family experience that what we're going to share here is what's happened when kids have started to really own their learning. This was not a teacher assignment. This actually, the little guy that you're going to see first, I think he's in middle school now. He was the one that started this when his family went to Disney. And they said to me, Mrs. Toomey, can we send a weather video? And I said, you sure can. So take a look at our little friend reporting the weather from Disney.
It is 80 degrees and sunny in Magic Kingdom, Orlando, Florida. What's the weather in New
We're getting
Jersey?
double. That's okay. Okay, so this is...
Hi, New Jersey friends. We're in the hotel Las Vegas. We're doing the weather. It's right here, and it's windy and sunny. And we have a water over here. And what's the weather like in New Jersey?
All right, so hold on. We're going to fix it. Can we fix the volume for the next ones? I'm just going to talk on that for a sec. So what happened was when our friend in New Jersey did the weather report, then when the children in California started traveling, they wanted to create weather reports with their families as well. So we went from New Jersey to California to collecting weather reports from around the world. We've gotten them from Russia, we've gotten them from the Bahamas, they've come from India. So again, we're bringing the kids' perspective on data and information out further. All right, so not only are we impacting their understanding of scientific standards and concepts, mathematical standards and concepts, we're also really impacting their ability to communicate the speaking and listening English language arts standards. So we have, if it works, a look at two of our little friends at the very beginning of the year, and then the same weather reporters a little bit later in the year, and you can hear the difference. The first one is, I think, in the first week of school.
In, where do we live? What are we going to ask our friends? What's the weather like in, we know in New Jersey, so we're asking what's it like in, where are they? The number? They live in California.
It is sunny and warm in California. The weather in New Jersey.
Okay, same weather reporters a couple months later. So you can see it right there. Doesn't that beat? Any data we can collect is living right there. We've gone from having the learning goal of developing data literacy in kindergarten, and look at our learning outcomes. They're spanning science, they're spanning social studies, they're spanning life skills, they're spanning communication with each other. So you might be thinking, all right, this is cool for Mrs. Toomey's class, but what about everybody else? There are so many ways to frame this kind of learning. So while I'm working with my buddy class, my amazing colleagues, my two buddy teachers that work at Old Farmers Road School, Rihanna Bonanno and Remy Pisano, are doing a different kind of collaboration. They are collecting on the same weather graph, but theirs is a single weather graph set up the same way, and we have their graph embedded on the website for the weather at Long Valley Middle School. So we use the middle school weather. They're able to collaborate on that graph together between classrooms, and that is there for the community to see. Think of the messaging that we're giving to our young children when we're showing them. Your words and your ideas and your experiences are important globally, and they're important to your families and communities, and your people can access this. So sometimes it's not just what we do, it's how we frame it for kids. And this actually was this is my favorite part of what I get to share with you right now. And I know I'm taking a little bit, it might be more than my 10 minutes I've been allotted, but I'm just gonna gush about this for a moment. All right, so this is like hot off the presses, because this is also what happens when you set up learning this way. What happened in January was we looked at our weather chart and we saw that our friends in California were not at school. We know in New Jersey that we have those snow days built into our calendar, and we put that in there for them. It will say snow day on a day that we have snow. But they know, wait a minute, based on our data, California doesn't get snow. They don't have blizzards like we have. Something else might be happening. And the kids knew. I was going to tread carefully and just tell them about the power outages and the wind and the extreme weather, but they had heard from their own families, and from being in the world, they knew about the wildfires. So I thought, okay, how are we going to approach this together in a way that's safe for young children? We don't want to scare them, but this is the world we live in. So how are we going to prepare them for that? So this was the approach. We were going to look for the helpers, and we did. So with our collaborating teacher in California, she connected me to the LA Fire Mutual Aid resource, and this is where I was able to show the kids the way that grown-ups come together, and they take data to help each other. So actually, this is a screenshot of the map, and we did this with the kids. If you clicked on any one of those dots right there, it was a collection of helpers that were either offering services, offering shelter, offering charging stations. We could see all the ways that people were helping each other. And you know what else we could do? We could figure out how we could help too. One of my favorite things that was actually on here, and if you clicked on the different places, we looked at, okay, they need clothes, they need supplies. One place actually said we need well wishes. So in the morning when we, I know, Tara, I know. In the morning when we did our Wish You Well song, we tucked California into our hearts and we sent well wishes to them, because that makes a difference. So we didn't stop there, because one of the parents in my class, knowing our buddy situation, actually emailed me and she said, Mrs. Toomey, has our buddy class been impacted? And I said, luckily, their section of town was okay, but their community, their surrounding community, was really feeling it. So the kids and I went back to the data again, and we looked at it and we tried to figure out what could we do to help, what action could we take. So we thought about, okay, they need diapers, but we can't send diapers over there, that would be a lot. They need clothes, we can't send clothes, that would be a lot. But what we can do, there were places looking for gift cards. So I went right to Mrs. Hawkswell, who went right to Mrs. Lind to get approval for this. And as a school, we started collecting gift cards to send to our buddies in California so that they would have them for their community. So what is really amazing about this, and we have just a little video to wrap it together. I'm not even going to tell you the conclusion. Okay, we're just going to watch it. And here's what I'm going to do, Carolee, before you push play. We're going to push play, and hopefully the volume will be working well. And then when it ends, we're just going to take 10 seconds to sit quietly together and feel the energy of what happens when this is the way we approach learning at Washington Township Schools.
So we collected almost $1,500 in gift cards to send to our buddy community in California. So we're just going to end with a quote from actually it was a parent at back to school night came up to me at the end and he said, "Mrs. Toomey, is this it?" I said, "Yep, this is it." After my whole presentation, he said, "I see it." And I said, what is it that you see? And he said, "I work in the field of data and I see my work in your classroom." And isn't that the most beautiful compliment that an educator could receive? That a parent could see the bridge between what's happening in the classroom and what's happening in the real world. So no matter what is happening and whatever decisions we're trying to make collectively, please take the messaging that is here, that we've put together for you in our kindergarten world, and tuck that into your hearts, because we're doing really beautiful work in our district. Thank you so much for your time. I know I took more than 10 minutes. Thank you for allowing me. And anytime you need a little boost, you call me and I'm gonna come talk to you all.
Thank you very much again for that. It's great. Moving on to correspondence. Where am I? This month we have correspondence from J and L Code. Committee reports. I think we're starting with Education Committee.
The Education Committee met Friday, January 24th at 11 a.m. In attendance was myself, Rob Waskus, Melanie Bratton, and Mrs. Lind. First, we spoke about, the superintendent updated committee members on potential make-up dates for the January 20th Professional Development Day that was unfortunately canceled due to inclement weather. A date will be decided upon sometime this spring when used and unused snow days can be assessed to best reschedule. We then moved on where Ms. Lind shared several new initiatives on the horizon aimed at strengthening horizontal articulation across all four district schools. The committee discussed the initiative of monthly topics being uniformly incorporated into each school's recognition of that month's chosen theme, and it was explained how it should appropriately be tied to the curriculum. She also introduced the initiative of launching the One School, One Book program. The initiative provides the same book to every child in our district and incorporates students, staff, community, and parents to collectively engage in reading the book together. According to the program, the strategy reinforces reading instruction, bridges the home-school connection, and builds a community of readers. Next, the committee discussed the initial phase of evaluating new companies more in line with the science of reading philosophy to replace the district's current ELA program. The superintendent shared that she has begun looking at samples for potential new programs. Priority of programs that include better physical take-home resources for readers and their parents was also mentioned. The committee continued to discuss the district's current changing practice at LVMS. The topic was subsequently sent to Finance Committee to evaluate financial feasibility. The district's end of year 5th grade and 8th grade festivities were discussed. Mrs. Lind shared plans to better incorporate parents into those monumental celebrations. Mrs. Lind also shared that she was planning on accompanying Mr. Jones at Texpo to view Mrs. Toomey's and Mrs. Carolee Gately's presentation that we got to watch tonight. Then we spoke about the concern of increase in damage to district-issued Chromebooks, and the need for increased accountability was discussed. It was also noted that while the guidance on cell phone use in schools is made clear that smartwatches connected to those devices are increasingly difficult to regulate, the committee will continue to discuss and likely defer to the Governance and Communications Committee for policy discussion.
Thank you. Finance and Facilities Committee?
Finance and Facilities met February 5th. In attendance were Jess, Lindsay, Mike, Antonella, Katie, Stephanie, and myself. We started off by discussing the Chromebook issue that Lindsay had mentioned. And we talked about a proposal from our technology coordinator, Ms. Gately, to adopt a technology fee for Chromebooks based on the model used by Westmore Central High School. It would be $50 per year for grades 5 through 8 and result in 8th graders owning their Chromebooks upon graduation. The driver for this, as Lindsay mentioned, is the need for as Lindsay mentioned in part, is the need for a 4-year lease of 1,068 Chromebooks for grades 1 through 5 and 237 staff laptops, along with skyrocketing repair fees to the tune of $16,800 plus labor for the district year to date. Estimated revenues from the Chromebook fee would be approximately $44,700, which would partially offset the cost incurred by the 4-year lease. Excuse me. Then the committee discussed an offer brought to us by Vice Mayor Morello to partner with community organizations to redo the Flocktown Cosman basketball courts, and these are the ones all the way in the back behind Cosman. The committee requested the details of the proposal, including scope and cost, and is grateful for the opportunity, should it arise, to collaborate on this project. Then the committee discussed Class 3 officers in the current state. Unfortunately, another month has gone by and the Washington Township Police Department is still unable to find us a candidate that can meet the terms of the agreed upon and signed contract. Hopefully, we will be able to resolve that in the coming months. Then the committee discussed a proposal to redo the door locks at Old Farmers Road School and Flocktown Cosman schools after feedback from the Township Fire Inspector. The estimated cost for both schools, or both campuses, 3 buildings, is $45,000, which will be spread out over the next few years as we upgrade one school at a time. And then we covered the referendum updates. The bid results for the culinary renovation at LVMS are in. That's item number 13 on tonight's agenda. Hopefully awarded in the amount of $788,200. The bid results for the STEAM spaces across the district are also in. That's item number 14 on tonight's agenda. Going to Northeastern Interior Services in the amount of $1,921,000. Final punch list and closeout activities are continuing on the Cuccinella and Old Farmers Road School paving projects, the Flocktown Cosman roof, and the Cosman window replacement. And our architects are still negotiating with contractors for the LVMS HVAC project and are reviewing proposals. We have one bid going out in March the 7th. That is for the LVMS music accessory space. The Finance and Facilities Committee, as Lindsay mentioned, was also unfortunately sucked into the time sink that is the LVMS gym clothes changing practice debate. The committee recommended against the option of providing gym shirts to LVMS students, citing the prohibitive year-over-year cost, and hopes that future committee work across the board will align with district goals and not distract our administration from more important priorities, such as ELA curriculum improvements, STEAM initiatives, and providing for the needs of our special education students. In more positive news, the district applied for the 2025 state recreation grant in the hopes of replacing the LVMS gym floor, gym mats, basketball hoops, and field fencing. The total for the grant submission was $100,000. If the whole amount of the grant is not received, the project scope will be reduced accordingly. The committee discussed cost implications of the recommendation from our special education director that the district add an additional integrated pre-K program for the 25-26 school year due to increased referrals. And the committee discussed an older proposal that came before the board 2 years ago, covering the possibility of starting a fencing team at the middle school, something that dropped off the radar during our leadership transitions over the past year. The district will send out another survey to gauge interest in a fencing team. The committee then discussed the One Book, One School initiative for this school year. We're very excited about the opportunity, and more information will be coming soon. And finally, the committee discussed the 25-26 budget preparations. As anticipated, the district will be using a 2% tax levy, available bank cap in the amount of approximately $63,000, and taking the health benefit adjustment again this year. Our administration team will continue to prioritize personnel, curriculum, special education, technology, and facilities needs across against projected revenues. And the district is excited to present the upcoming initiatives in a slightly new fashion this year that align with our district goals at our annual preliminary budget presentation in March.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the Personnel Committee.
Met January 27th. In attendance was myself, John Hawley, Mike Picano, and Anthony Lind. The agenda included the SRO position, discussion of Class 3 officer, review of district initiatives with the administration team, Mrs. Lind, visiting the school buildings and supporting admin, including upcoming observations, leadership meetings, and more. Mid-year review to be planned with admin and Mrs. Lind for non-tenured staff, and Mrs. Lind is working with the central office to prepare for the upcoming budget, our CUSAC visit, and more centered around the district goals and long-range plans. Mrs. Lind and Ms. DeRiso met with the architect to review the status of our referendum projects and timelines. We reviewed systems for safer building check-ins and new platforms for internal software that improves organization, for an example, ESOP and evaluation. This will also be reviewed in the Finance Committee. We spoke about the board retreat, reviewed items for that evening, and discussed dates for the next meeting.
Thank you. And lastly, Communication and Governance Committee.
The Communications and Governance Committee met on January 23rd. The attendees were Jennifer Ryan, Melanie Bratton, Jess DeSico, Isabel Vieira, and Antonella Lind. The topics were the gym changing policy. We discussed allowing students to have an alternative option when required to change for physical education. We reviewed safe gym attire, school spirit, t-shirt, and hygiene. We will continue discussions around options that allow students to comfortably participate in physical education and the locker rooms. Mrs. Lind will review further with Mr. Ippolito and the gym teachers. Another item was the need for the new policy concerning scheduling at LVMS. We discussed scheduling and notification of schedules prior to the first day and week of school. We reviewed open house ideas and district-wide communication with scheduling and easing students' anxiety the first week of school. Also discussed was policy change update. Mrs. Lind will follow up with NJSB this Friday. An email will be sent out if we do not receive our crosswalk and manual. I will review the breach of contract and serious concerns moving forward with this process and support. We will review Strauss-Esme again as we want to ensure we are fully compliant and supported. We discussed the governance calendar. Jessica will share the calendar and we will review it further. Our next meeting will be scheduled soon. We are reviewing dates and times that work for everyone. We also spoke about the retreat. We discussed the NJSB being at the retreat due to support, points towards board certifications and more, and the agenda for the retreat to be reviewed further as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. Moving on to public comment on agenda items. If you have a public comment on an agenda item, please approach the microphone and state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Danielle Gould, Topola Drive. I think it was fate that I was here tonight. Mr. Waskis, you made a comment about the integrated preschool and potentially adding another classroom. I think that's a great idea. And I struggled to get my son into the full-day preschool, but I work as an occupational therapist in early intervention, and I'm seeing a lot of children that once they age out, there's nothing else for them. So I think that having a high-quality full-day preschool like we do here would be a great idea. So if that could be considered, I strongly think that that will allow for the improved test scores and enhanced social skills and greater long-term academic success. So I'm really excited to hear that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on the agenda items? Okay. Address her comment or?
No, so I, in the like, I do agree, just to address early childhood is very important across the board. I know that we are, K to 8, but the preschool piece is huge. And so, in collaboration also with the Director of Special Services and reviewing everything that, the needs, we want to be able to continue to support our students from the beginning and really have that collaboration and have the families feel that there is a continuum there. And then from there, assess as we go. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I'd just like to also add, my youngest son is also in the integrated pre-K program, and he comes home really excited from school. He loves it. So he seems like he runs around the school like he owns it already. So by the time he gets to kindergarten itself, he's going to be light years ahead than what we even expected. So just wanted to add to that. Next is approval of minutes. I'm making a motion to approve the January 7th regular meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay. And a motion to approve the February 3rd, 2025 regular meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay. Moving on to the agenda items. Can I please have somebody move education?
Education would like to make a motion to move items number 1 through 6.
Is there any discussion? I wanted to actually just bring up, and I had kind of prepared you guys, the calendar that I think it's agenda item number 3. Sorry, I'm a mess here. Yes, number 3. I just wanted to pull it up on the screen just to kind of go over just a small change from prior years. I think the biggest change, which I'm actually kind of excited about, I think most people are excited about too, is that the next school year is going to start that Tuesday after Labor Day. So I know previously we had started it, I think it's that Thursday. I think it was a half day. I can't remember, but I think it's a good change, I think, because I think we heard a lot of feedback from the community that, they could do a last minute kind of holiday vacation with their families, which always would get cut short coming back to, before the Labor Day weekend. So I think that's a good addition. The one other thing I wanted to actually ask, and maybe I'm a Grinch with this one, but the 19th is the last day before the holiday break. Sorry, maybe I should just do this. Which they have a pretty generous Christmas holiday break. That's scheduled to be an early dismissal day. I know previously, just historically, we've always done the last day before the break as an early dismissal. I think the high school's having a full day. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I didn't know not that we have to hold up approving this, but I didn't know if anybody had any thoughts on possibly making that a full day, given that they're going to be out from the last day is the 19th and not coming back until the 5th of January. I don't know. Not a deal breaker by any means. I just didn't know if anybody had any opinion on it.
As a parent to somebody who has a child in each school, I know this has been a big point of contention between us trying to align with the high school. It never happens. I think that the kids are pretty rambunctious, the young learners, right before the holiday break. And I think a half day is a really nice treat for them right before break. But that's just me. I mean, my high school kid is pretty independent, so it's really irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not going to hold anything up. I just wanted to know if anybody had any thoughts on that.
I do agree. The kids are wild come that last week before the holiday break. It doesn't matter when that break starts, they know it's coming. So half day is beneficial for everyone, I think.
Okay. And that also aligns with the high school, with the busing and everything. We verified that too. Okay. I just wanted to make sure before we, if there's any other discussion. move to a roll call.
Mrs. DeSica? Yes. Mr. Catano?
Yes.
Mrs. Vieira?
Yes.
Mrs. Succi?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mr. Oldman?
Yes. Moving on to finance, can I please have somebody move finance?
Finance would like to move agenda item number 7, a motion to accept with gratitude the following contributions, the total of $4,514.32 from the Community Foundation of New Jersey Sue Driscoll Memorial Scholarship Fund to be used for language arts instructional supplies as follows: $596.69 for Blocktown Cosman, $2,211.80 for Old Farmers, $519.94 for Cuccinella, $1,185.89 for LVMS, and also a $1,350 anonymous donation toward the formation of an esports club at the Long Valley Middle School.
And do we have a second? Any discussion? Okay, roll call?
Mrs. DeSica? Yes. Mr. Catano?
Yes.
Mrs. Vieira?
Yes.
Mrs. Succi?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mr. Oldman?
Yes. And can I please have somebody please move personnel?
I got to move the rest of
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Would like to move items 8 through 19 on the agenda.
And do we have a second? Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. DeSica? Yes. Mr. Catano?
Yes.
Mrs. Vieira?
Yes.
Mrs. Succi?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mr. Oldman?
Yes. Okay, now, can I have somebody please move personnel?
Personnel would like to make a motion to move the following items. Motion to accept with regret the following retirements. Tracy Moskasinski, Teacher of Academic Assistance, Blocktown Cosman School, effective March 1st, 2025, after 27 years of service in the district. Cheryl Kerpez, Media Specialist, Old Farmers Road School, effective July 1st, 2025, after 20 years of service in the district. Merrill Kurtz, Teacher of Special Education, Blocktown Cosman School, effective July 1st, 2025, after 25 years of service in the district. Roberta Lance, Driver, effective August 4th, 2025, after 22 years of service in the district. And Diane Domarecki, School Secretary, Old Farmers Road School, effective August 1st, 2025, after 20 years of service in the district.
And do we have a second? Is there any discussion?
I'll just say a brief word. Couldn't help but notice we're losing, if I did the math right, 114 years of experience and service to the district. So thank you.
Yes, I agree. I was going to call that out too. All 5 of these names have been in there for over 20 years, so I just want to thank all of them for their service and dedication to our district. There's no other discussion. We'll have a roll call.
Mrs. DeSica? Yes. Mr. Catano?
Yes.
Mrs. Vieira?
Yes.
Mrs. Succi?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mr. Oldman?
Yes. Agenda item 21.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to move items 21 through 31.
And second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. DeSica? Yes. Mr. Catano?
Hold on, I'm not done. Yes, with an abstention to 31.
Mr. Catano?
Yes.
Mrs. Vieira?
Yes.
Mrs. Succi?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes, with an abstention, with an abstention on number 31, specifically Ms. Lotito.
Mr. Oldman?
Yes. Next, I'd like to make a motion to read for the second time policies under agenda item number 32. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. DeSica? Yes. Mr. Catano?
Yes.
Mrs. Vieira?
Yes.
Mrs. Succi?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mr. Oldman?
Yes. And next, I'd like to make a motion to read for the first time the policies under agenda item number 33. Do I have a second?
Second?
Is there any discussion?
Yes. Really quick, this is minor, but for policy 9181, and I can send this, I guess I'll send this to you, Antonella, in an email. The last sentence of the third paragraph, in the editing process, there were some strike-throughs. It got a little garbled. It doesn't quite make sense. So can we just take another look at that for clarity?
Yes.
I'll follow up with you.
Okay.
So do we just, for that policy specifically, are we tabling that, or do we?
Nope,
Okay.
not recommending table.
It's only a first reading.
Yep.
So it'll be corrected
Okay.
for the second reading.
Got it. Okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Mr. Catano?
Yes.
Mrs. Vieira?
Yes.
Mrs. Succi?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mr. Oldman?
Yes. And moving on to unfinished business. Does anybody have any unfinished business?
So I have unfinished that wraps up into new business. It's all kind of connected. So basically, I have a seat on the Morris County School Boards. And at our meeting this week, we typically touch on training for all of our board members within Morris County and then anybody outside Morris County who wants to join in on these training sessions. A couple of things came up and they all sort of intertwine. So the biggest, I guess, hurdle that a lot of districts are facing, ourselves included, is we all have very new boards. There's a high turnover of board members. It's a really steep learning curve. There's a lot of work that goes on in a board that most people don't know about, especially new board members, because by the time you're already in the thick of it, which is like your first committee meeting, you probably haven't even had your first training session yet. So during the presentation, I actually brought two things that we pretty much piloted in our district to this training session. But then there was something that Pequannock District brought to the table as well that I wanted to actually talk about under new business. Under unfinished business, one of the things that I brought to the training this past week was our code of governance, which has been in the work for a couple of years. I'll get it back on this. I'll get it on the screen eventually. It's okay. I just want to talk about it first. So basically, the code of governance, the reason that the board felt strongly about adopting a code of governance was just a best practice list for new board members, all board members actually to follow in regard to preparation to board meetings, conduct during board meetings, and then what happens post board meetings to prepare for the next one. So we usually, well, I shouldn't say we were supposed to go ahead and read through it, and whoever chose to could sign off on it of the board as our promise to the community to deliver good work. So I'm bringing that up under unfinished business because we're gonna do that tonight. And then the other bit that we brought to the table that was also a huge success and was really well received along with the code of governance was our governance calendar. So our governance calendar was something that came up in our board retreat last year, and it was supposed to be part of our board goals. And obviously with the turnover on the board and the turnover on leadership, it kind of fell by the wayside. So I went ahead and took it upon myself to come up with the shell, and I had some collaboration with some of our board members to help make sure that everything came together. And basically what this thing is, and I'll put it up on the screen in a minute, it's really a snapshot and an organizational tool of all of the board's work and the deadlines that the work needs to be done by. So I'll just bring it up on the screen. Hello. Okay. Let's see. We just have to go through long hill slides. Sorry, guys. Okay. So this is our board governance calendar, and the first section is the work that we do as a whole board. I thought that this was really nice for the community also to see, so that everybody understands what actually goes on in our committee meetings and the work that gets done. I know a lot of this just seems like we just say a bunch of things and vote yes on a bunch of things, but there's really a lot of involvement here. So you'll see we have the board meetings listed out, all of our committee meetings are listed out. We do an end of year staff review based on the CSA recommendations. We appoint outside professional positions that are not appointed at the reorg. We have our own self-evaluation, which I don't even think the community knows that we do, or maybe doesn't pay attention to. We have our CSA evaluation. We set executive sessions. We have district goals. We do an end of year report on board goals, and the list goes on and on. I'm not going to go through all of them, but as you can see, there's a whole lot that goes on, and this was a really nice way to organize everything that needs to get done throughout the year. I also have a bucket for our committees. So you'll see this is a lot of the bulk of what finance goes through during the whole year and all the deadlines. Communications and governance, which again, a lot of people understand it's not just policy. You're talking PR, you're talking organization, you're talking training for the board as a whole, which again is something else that our district pushed for that now a lot of other districts are going to follow because it came up during our Morris County board meeting. And education. And then this is our code of governance. Like I said, the purpose of it is really just best practices. This does not supersede the code of ethics. Obviously, the code of ethics is a legal document. This is not. This is really just a best practice. And then you can see at all times, you know, for us to basically serve with integrity before a board meeting, come prepared. And there's a lot of bullet points I'm not going to go through. But tonight we're going to go ahead and sign that. So basically, that was just our, that was it. This is just the steps that we are taking as a board to do a better job for our district and to serve with real integrity, because although it's a volunteer position, we are elected officials. We were elected by our community, and we have the obligation to serve to the best of our ability. And with the right training and the right organization and the right goals, we can go ahead and achieve that. So that was that. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, one more thing under new business as well. So the thing that Pequannock brought to the table in the way of training for new board members, they have a more robust training that I want to discuss in our communications and governance committee. So we have a very basic training, which a lot of districts do, but a lot of districts also felt like it wasn't enough. So they have like mentorship, they have handbooks, things like that. So I would like to go ahead and bring that to our committee for further discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Jess. Does anybody else, before I move on to new business, does anybody else have any unfinished business? Okay. Moving on to new business, I wanted to bring up one thing, and I had emailed our board that I was going to bring this up. I just wanted to talk maybe conversationally about the proposed Kings Highway project and how that's potentially going to impact our town and our education system really in years to come if it is approved. The last I had heard, I think they're looking at building something around 260 units off of Kings Highway. Some of those are going to be for low-income housing, I believe. Kings Highway is zoned Flocktown. I'm not sure, you know, the current capacity at Flocktown, but, you know, I'm sure we can figure out some sort of an average on, you know, how many kids that's going to bring into our school system over the years. I'm not sure. I'm not going to accuse anybody. I'm not sure the town is really thinking that part of it through, because you're going to have a large influx of kids into one school district, one school building. I hate to say the word redistricting, but I don't know, you know, once this is if this is approved and fully established, I don't see any other way how we couldn't redistrict to accommodate this. So again, we haven't discussed this as a board. I believe there is a township committee meeting later this month where they are doing a first read on this project. And I thought that we really need to be doing our homework. We're probably actually behind the 8 ball on it, quite honestly, but you know, it could not go through, but I'm hearing that, you know, it's leaning towards they're looking to go forward with this project. I think it's fundamentally going to change our school system, let alone our town, if the full scale of this project is actually built. But again, I just wanted to kind of open it up to the board if they have any opinions, if anybody wants to kind of chime in at all.
I have a concern, I guess, that I want to know that we're kind of ahead of and being prepared for special services, because you don't know what district anyone might be coming from, if they're on par with us, if they're not quite. So I don't know how you would even begin to prepare for students that you don't yet have, but could put a burden on our special services, especially, not just general ed.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that, quite honestly. I mean, I don't know. I mean, with everything, a new influx of population, it's not just kids. There's going to be a certain population of them that potentially need IEPs. That's a whole other different undertaking. I just really think we went over. There's a number out there that I think is 78% capacity, but that's more along the lines of building capacity. That doesn't necessarily reflect. You don't want over 100% building capacity, obviously. Just even from fire code, I'm not even going down that. I'm just saying each building, each room has their own kind of feel and purpose where you can't have more than a certain amount of kids. There's different ratios with special needs kids to general population, things like that. So there's a lot to really unpack here. And other than trying to get in touch with somebody from the town, I had invited Walter Curioni, who's our board liaison, who's on the township committee. He's actually coaching wrestling tonight, and he tried to make it, but at the last minute, they were down coaches. So I'm not going to hold it against him. It was last minute. But I really do think that we as a board really need to be prepared for this, because I'm actually surprised we haven't gotten questions on it from the public yet. But like I said, it could really have a big impact on our school district. So,
Does anyone sitting here know how close we are to being at capacity for students, not just bodies, but how full are we?
Well, you have to consider a couple of things. You have to consider your class sizes, right? So we made a move to keep our class sizes down a few years ago, and we'd like to obviously do that. My bigger question is, does anybody from the board plan on attending this town meeting? Because I feel like if this is truly a concern, somebody should.
it's a concern of mine. I believe, I can't remember if it's February 18th or 19th, the next township committee meeting where they're doing the first read. I have every intention of trying to go. I don't know how much I want to speak on behalf of the board, other than a concerned parent, I guess. I'd have to actually discuss that with Steve on how much I can represent the board. I don't think I really can, because I don't know everybody's opinion on it. But I can be clear to just kind of say it as a concerned parent. But
Well, I think just to gather information and bring it back to us too would be
yeah.
helpful.
I mean, I hope, like I said, a first read means I hate to say it, but they're probably going to go for it, in my opinion. But whenever we bring something to the first read, you have every intention of pretty much making it happen. So,
Does anyone know, and obviously this is a question for the township, but I don't know if anybody knows if the project was discussed, whether the property could be age restricted to senior housing?
it's a good question. I don't know.
Because it would obviously be a lot more palatable to the
Yeah.
community and a less impactful on our school system.
And I'm not an expert on this. I don't pretend to be. I've tried to pay attention to it. I've talked to Walter. I've tried to talk to Marino. It's my fault, actually, with scheduling. I wasn't able to connect with him on it. But it's my understanding that property off Kings Highway is zoned commercial now. It's a whole big ordeal with them possibly suing us if we don't go through with it. So again, I'm not going to stand up here on a soapbox and pretend like I really know a lot about it, because I don't. I do want to get smarter on it. I will try to attend the township committee meeting. I'm opening up to anybody else to do that as well. But I think us, really, parents too, should really just kind of be asking questions on it, because I really think if they build this project as they're saying they're going to do, to the size, I think it's really going to have some big downstream effects on our school system for sure.
So what you may want to do is to request a copy of their demographic study. The demographic study should have identified how many births would be expected in that development and what the impact would be on your schools. Now, that's a document that is subject to access under the Open Public Records Act. I'm sure that they will provide a copy to you if the superintendent or the business administrator requests it, so that the board at least has some initial impression as to what their expert is suggesting will be the impact on your schools. The demographic study should have covered the impact on your schools, and specifically the school that would be impacted based on Kings Highway.
I'll just add one thing to that. As part of our long-range facilities planning effort, we're contracted with our architect, Perret Samjen, and they are doing enrollment projections, which I believe include that data. I don't know if they have it yet, but that is an ongoing effort.
Okay, thanks. And Katie did just look it up. It is February 18th. I believe it starts at 6:45, in case anybody is interested. Is there any other discussion on new business? Okay. Moving on to public comment. If anybody, this is on all items. If anybody has a public comment, please approach the microphone, state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Paul Drive. Good evening. I am a parent of 2 children with IEPs at Cuccinella. My daughter receives speech, my son receives OT, PT, and speech services. I'm an OT by trade, and I have experience working in geriatrics and pediatrics, including early intervention, and in public, private, and special needs schools. It's fate that I was here tonight, it really is. So I was told that our district does not qualify for the Preschool Expansion Act because the percentage of students receiving free and reduced price lunch is at roughly 7%. While eligibility for the grant requires 10% or higher. I understand that this is the state's criteria, but it doesn't change the reality that our families are still paying for a free program in more than half of New Jersey's public school districts. If the district is ineligible for state funding, what alternative funding sources have been explored? There are federal and private grants available for early childhood education, many of which are listed on GrantWatch and similar databases. I would love if the district could look into these opportunities. Additionally, we are bringing in students with an IEP from outside Cuccinella's zoning due to staffing and accommodations. What happens when the Kings Highway initiative moves forward? How will our district absorb the additional demand? We need a proactive plan. When I mentioned that I pay $475 a month for my son with an IEP to attend full-day preschool because I'm a working parent, I need a full-day preschool, to my local pediatrician, she was shocked, calling it cringe, the Gen Alpha term, cringe, that our district would require a working parent of a special needs student to pay for what is free elsewhere. In Hackettstown, Netcong, Barnegat, and 290 districts, it's a free full-day program for children with IEPs. My son's neurodevelopmental pediatrician also cited FAPE and Code 6A, which I've read, highlighted, and studied. But after calling the state ombudsman and preschool specialist, I was told it is legal as long as the district deems half-day sufficient. I question if any child in our district receives free full-day preschool due to identified needs, and if not, this raises serious equity concerns. I had a paragraph on the advantages of a high-quality full-day preschool, but I touched on that earlier. I want to talk about the convenience fee. As if paying $475 per month for my son to attend a full-day preschool with his IEP isn't frustrating enough. When I try to pay through my mealtime using a credit card, I'm charged an outrageous $23.28 convenience fee, bringing my total to $498.28 per month. For non-IEP students paying $950 per month, that fee jumps to $46.55 just to use a credit card. Standard credit card processing fees range from 2.5 to 3.5%, yet this charge is way beyond that. So now on top of everything, I have to remember to send or drop off a check just to avoid paying this absurd fee. It's adding insult to injury. First, I'm paying for something that I feel should be free, and then I'm penalized for trying to make a simple payment online. I urge the board to immediately review and rectify this exorbitant fee structure. Supporting our teachers and staff. I was told that at Cuccinella, each grade gets $2,000 to $3,000 per year divided among 4 homerooms. While I'm glad to hear that this typically covers curriculum-related expenses, it's clear that it doesn't account for classroom consumables or enrichment activities, hence the constant Amazon wish list, classroom donation requests, supply list requests, filled with items like laminating sheets, tissues, Clorox wipes, Ziploc bags, Play-Doh, kinetic sand. While I completely understand that some of these supplies might get lost or overused, this isn't unique to our district, and other districts seem to manage without such heavy reliance on our parents. Why? Because they are not only allowing bigger budgets for teachers, but also exploring alternative funding sources. Just as if there's funding for preschool, there are ways to secure resources for classrooms. Companies like Crayola, which generates approximately $504 million in annual revenue, frequently fulfill donation requests, as do many large corporations. It just takes the time and effort to apply. I would love to see the district make some attempts to secure some of these donations. The budgets for teachers, nurses, and therapists need to be increased. We don't live in a destitute town, as evidenced by things that were getting approved tonight. And how about supplying the Clorox wipes, the tissues, the bags, and enrichment for the preschool classes? Teachers and staff should not have to rely on the PTO fundraising or parent donations to meet these basic needs in their classrooms. When I was the class mom last year, it was the same few families helping every single time. So maybe some of the money that you're charging me for the preschool could be redirected to fulfilling the supply list and meeting the needs of the teachers, nurses, and therapists. I just have to say, it kills me. When I was walking by at the open house for Cuccinella and I see the nurse standing there with her board asking for donations, it's like she's the one person in the classroom. I have 2 medically complex children, and they constantly are visiting the nurse, so we're on, great terms. And just to see her asking for things, she's the one person that shouldn't have to ask for a thing, right? That's how I feel. I don't think that she should be asking for anything. I suppose that when I worked under a commission, any requests that I made was met with a lot of support. While I was sometimes encouraged to explore more cost-effective options or postpone less urgent needs, I was always asked what I needed to best serve the children in my care, and those needs were prioritized. So I think we need a concrete strategy to ensure adequate staffing, resources, and space. I'm really nervous about the Kings Highway, working in early intervention. I'm working with kiddos 0 to 3. It's very scary what's going on. There's a lot of working parents, a lot of grandparents, babysitters watching, lots of screens. I'm really trying my best to show, these parents and caregivers, the other things that are out there in our community that are free, like the library and things that could really enrich our children, because we're going to get a handful. It's going to be a lot. So we have to plan for this. And I think that the budget needs to be readjusted to provide basics to the individuals who are teaching our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Is there anybody else for public comment?
Zellers Road. I just had a quick question, if I may, and I apologize if this was brought up at another meeting, but I don't recall. In regard to the new ELA possible curriculum discussion, just 2 quick things, 3 actually. One, have we decided that there is a need for a new English language arts curriculum? As an ELA teacher, I just want to make sure that I'm not screwing anything up. And if so, great. Will Debbie Russo be a part of that choosing committee? Will there be teachers, either chosen or volunteers from a multitude of grade levels and or specialty areas, including math and science, since we're very cross-curricular? Yeah, that's it. So I don't expect an answer now, but just as a teacher and...
I can give you one now.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Antonella.
Prior to your comment, I just want to address, I will most likely be following up with, I'm sorry, I don't have...
I apologize. I missed your name as well. Danielle?
Danielle Gould.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So if you don't mind, please send me an email, because I'd like to follow up. I think there's going to be some conversation there that is going to be more geared to your children and family and pieces that would be confidential, right? So, but there's a lot there to unpack. So I'd like to be able to, and we'll go from there with that, okay? To answer your questions as well, for the ELA, there absolutely is a need, absolutely, and with phonics, et cetera, okay? So we're gonna be unpacking that. But what that will look like will be that there will be leadership initiatives there that then we're going to obviously review with, Ms. Russo's already putting together samples, putting together teachers that she thinks, will absolutely have great feedback there. But I don't want it to just be just Ms. Russo, it's going to be all of us as a leadership team, because I know that the principals are going to have, their feel on some of this. And the only thing to be fully transparent about is that I do want to have these initiatives start. And so we're in the middle of budget. And so therefore I want to try to kind of so if it's almost being perceived as like fast, it is. Only because of the fact that I want to get some of it in responsibly and make appropriate choices, but then we'll continue to build on it. So like those extra building pieces where you have those cross-curricular opportunities will come into play, especially for like curriculum revisions, et cetera. But some of the staples that we're missing right now, I don't have this type of time either. So, and everyone knows that. So we're looking to do this right, but also just kind of lay down those fundamental pieces where everyone will be involved in it though. Okay, yeah. Any other questions, just reach me, but that's what, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. Is there any other comments on the public comment? Okay. Moving on to district distinct.
Maybe one.
Yeah.
Credit card fee is an hours.
Yeah, so
we can at least clarify that.
That's a good point. So the credit card fee that you had mentioned is a My Mealtime, which is the food service provider that we use. I agree. It's very, very high. It's ridiculous. When I first,
Yes.
for staff too. Yes. I mean, the first time I told you before, my son's in integrated pre-K, so I think it's $950 a month. I went to go do it, and I was like, I'm not paying that. And I brought in, or I set up a check or something like that got delivered. It is not our fee. It's the food service provider's fee. We went through, and Rob, you can chime in on this as well. I mean, we kind of went through, a new food service provider. We did keep My Mealtime because they were the best options, right?
But so it's not Mashio's either.
Right. It's My Mealtime is the.
It's the software piece of it.
Yeah.
And they're hitting us for, and I agree, it's outrageous. We have looked at other options, other software platforms that we might be able to use, because we were looking at rolling this out for other fees, like if you're, library late fees, maybe yearbooks or things like that, but other ways to process electronic payments. So we have looked at other options, and we're continuing to look at other options. But I sympathize. It's an outrageous fee. That's not the district.
If I could also clarify just a small piece of it. I just wanted to clarify that there are some children, depending on need, that do qualify for a full day program if their needs supersede the amount of time allotted for the half-day program. My son at the time, years ago, this is 5 years ago, did qualify for that full day, when the majority of students don't qualify for that level of need. So I did just want to clarify that if you do have a child that has needs that exceed the half-day resources, that is something that would then be covered by the district. The additional half-day was an option given last year as a courtesy to parents who work full-time. It was never offered previously. It was only a half-day program, and the feedback was that there was a lot of parents that were unable to send their kid to the district school because the only place that they were able to be bused to afterwards, after the half-day, would be an in-district preschool. And a lot of people found that was insufficient, so people were not putting their children in the intervention services, and they were keeping them in daycare, and so they weren't receiving those services. So it was sort of a compromise to open it up and say, if you'd like to pay for the remaining half day of the program, that you would be able to do so. But we don't require students that have needs that exceed that time allotment, that they pay the remainder of that day, if that makes sense.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Too?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I just want to talk about the grant, like the Crayola one that you had talked about too. So we have absolutely visited some of those, and I can tell you, Katie and Liz George, who came before Katie, were very good at grant writing and looking at the bigger state grants. The smaller grants, I can tell you, I have applied for myself. Walmart, Crayola, Target. They are so hard to get. They go to schools that have basically nothing. And last year, my brother's an engineer and works for one of the big engineer companies. I forget which one, the one that did LaGuardia. He notified me of a scholarship for some STEM money. I even applied for that, and my brother works for the company, and I thought maybe we'd have an in, but we didn't qualify for that grant either. But just know, like, we do try, even though like it's not publicized. Publicize your losses, you publicize your wins, but we do look into those things.
I was going to say too, now that you brought it up, I was going to vouch for that. My time on finance last year, I know Katie and Jess were really good at always looking for grants. It was kind of one of the main, ways to open up the committee meeting was discussing, what grants we could possibly go after and qualify for. So I had firsthand experience on, this board looking for grant money. So I just wanted to add that in. Was there anything else? Okay. Moving on to district distinctions. In district news, our district made the front cover of the January NJEA Review magazine, which featured the success of our Heart Smart initiative that was introduced last year through the help of the NJEA Frederick L. Hip grant, where the program was described as a game changer. The cover features 2 students from our Cuccinella School, and I encourage everyone to go to the NJEA Review website and locate the January 2025 edition to read about it. Curriculum news, the district STEM coach, Dave Jones, recently met with the LVMS math department, coordinated by Amanda Schweikart, LVMS math coach and accelerated math teacher, to highlight the new K-5 math program, Eureka Math Squared. The meeting focused on impressive gains observed in students' mathematical thinking and understanding. Teachers expressed enthusiasm about the positive progress, confident it will continue to enhance students' math skills and processes, laying a solid foundation for their future success. In special education news, the Washington Township Special Education Group hosted a guest speaker from Amazing Strides, who presented on the services their organization provides for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Amazing Strides is a dedicated organization committed to supporting individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, IDD, through comprehensive services and personalized care. Their mission is to enhance independence, improve quality of life, and promote inclusion within the community. Elena Warner from Amazing Strides presented our CPAG committee meeting on February 4th, sharing insights on the organization's services and how they support individuals with IDD in achieving meaningful progress. This presentation was an excellent opportunity for families and educators to learn about available resources and collaborative efforts that can positively impact the lives of those with disabilities. In LVMS, Assistant Morris County Juvenile Prosecutor Samantha DeNegri and Sergeant Patrick Liguori presented to students on Friday, January 31st, on bias, internet safety, and HIB. As always, their presentation was impactful and relevant, and we thank our LVMS Panthers for their attention to the messages shared by our partners in law enforcement. At LVMS, the LVMS Lady Panthers basketball team proceeded to the championship final in the MCJ SCA Morris County Junior Schools Coaches Association Tournament, finishing in second place to a tough team from Pequannock. Our Panthers played well and should be very proud of their successful season. And yes, just yesterday, I was made aware that their congratulations is in order for LVMS's 7th grader Penelope Draghi. Penelope auditioned for the North Jersey Junior Region Choir on Saturday, February 8th. And not only was she accepted into the treble choir, but she also placed 4th out of 60 students auditioning for the soprano 1 part. This is an incredible achievement, and it's not her first. Penelope was also recently a member of the Morris Area Honor Choir. At Flocktown Cosman, we began with a PTA-sponsored assembly to kick off Black History Month, celebrating folktales and inspirational stories. Delivering a message where cultivating a culture of kindness within our school community is more important than ever. As a school of kindness, we strive not to be a place where students learn academic skills, but a space where compassion, respect, and empathy thrive. February is also Love the Bus Month at Flocktown Cosman, where they take time to appreciate our student transportation vehicles, school buses of all sizes and colors. We send our appreciation to the many hardworking school bus drivers and aides who spend their time making sure our students get to school and back safely. Blocktown Cosman students recently sent cards, while some families sent monetary donations to the Cumbie County Schools Foundation in North Carolina. The BCS is deeply grateful for organizations, schools, public and private donors for their unwavering support in helping their families, staff, and students, staff, and families recover from the impact of Hurricane Helene. Thanks to the schools like Blocktown Cosman, they were able to provide staff assistance grants, open a distribution center for essential resources, surprise principals with checks to support their schools, fund additional counselors to assist with mental health recovery, and so much more. Our contributions are making a real difference in the lives of our community members as they continue to rebuild and heal. At Old Farmers, 5th graders are leading the way during Wellness Week. Our 5th graders became teachers, guiding younger students on the essentials of a healthy and happy life. Through fun presentations, they shared tips on nutrition, exercise, mindfulness, and kindness. To make the lessons even more engaging, they used our school mascot, Bowser the dog. And what was that, you, Melanie?
I was sick. I had the mail last
I
minute.
know you're Bowser a lot, so I've been
I
here
was
once or twice.
supposed to be me.
To show caring for pets, teaches us to care for ourselves. Second graders began their research on civic leaders who shape society by standing against injustice and advocating for change. Their resilience and commitment to fairness inspire future generations to use their voices and actions to build a better world. Figures like Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and Ruby Bridges exemplified perseverance and advocacy. Through literature, discussions, and projects, students gain a deeper appreciation for history and their own potential to create change. There are also STEM enrichment opportunities for all students. Gifted and talented teachers Dana Castellana and Matt Doshert visit each kindergarten through 3rd grade class to provide 2 STEM-based enrichment lessons. At Cuccinella, they hosted their monthly Party with the Principal celebration to recognize our bucket fillers of the week for their past month. Students in different grade levels are partnering with each other to read, complete activities, and make crafts related to the 100th day of school and Valentine's Day. The kindergarten teachers are sponsoring the Spreading Kindness Community Pantry Project, where students and families in all grades are encouraged to donate items for the Drakestown United Methodist Church Food Pantry. Donations will be collected at Cuccinella until Tuesday, February 18th. Cuccinella students in Mrs. Bissell's class are corresponding with pen pals in Mrs. Quigley-Shant's class at Old Farmers Road School. And across all schools, we would like to also thank all the PTO and PTA organizations in our district that support our great schools. We are very lucky and grateful to have such supportive organizations and dedicated parents and teachers. And lastly, again, I wanted to thank Carolee Gately, Jessica Toomey, and Dave Jones for their work at Texpo and presenting it to the district tonight, and all the students and staff for supporting them. And that concludes my district distinctions. So I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.